Hi, my name is Clara Miller. I would like to show you around my home. I have lived on the same 1,000-acre piece of property my family calls the Hanks Ranch my entire life. Although we refer to our property as the Hanks Ranch, Hank doesn't actually own it. He's our dog. But there was a man by the name of Hank who owned and worked the land I now live on. He's who we named our dog after. Unfortunately, the man had succumbed to an untimely demise in the mid-1800s when a haystack fell on him. Thank goodness we have better equipment now that can stack the hay more efficiently and safely. Like I said, I have lived on the Hanks Ranch my entire life. I live here with my parents, Austin and Jenny, and my three brothers, Lucas, Tyson, and Seth. We have 90 cows, 50 chickens, 4 dogs, and 2 horses. As I'm sure you can see, I love my animals. One of my favorite things to do is to lay down in the field with my milk cow and her calf. Her name is Clover and her calf's name is Sammy. When I'm upset or having a rough day, my mom tells me to get some Clover time. It helps me to feel better instantly. Sometimes something else I love to do is ride my horse, Mighty Tim. I have competed in rodeos, running barrels, and poles, tying goats, and roping. If I'm outdoors, I'm pretty happy. A few years ago, I told my mom that I wanted a rabbit. She said we didn't have any place the rabbit could live, so I decided I would build a rabbit hutch, and I built it all by myself. Once I got the hutch built, my mom couldn't say no, so I got a rabbit. Even though I live here and bring countless animals home, much to my parents' delight, I do not own the land in a legal sense, so who claims property rights? Well, my grandma and grandpa own most of the land, but there's a section that my parents own. We were able to get a survey done by the county to section the land off from my grandparents' land, and the county deeded several acres of the land in my parents' name. On that section of land, my parents built a home. We also built what we call Hank's house. As you might have suspected, Hank doesn't live there. In fact, no one lives in Hank's house. It's just the name we use to refer our little apartment that my parents built so my brothers and I would have a place to hang out, especially during the winter. It has a hot tub, a pool table, workout equipment, and a loft where someone could sleep if they needed to. Because my parents own the land, they were able to build as they saw fit. This is their right as property owners, and as their child, it is also my right to spend my time doing what I love on our property. My brothers and I have to help around the farm too. We have chores that help maintain the buildings we have built and to take care of all the animals we have. This will help to preserve the property for future generations like me. With the right to own property comes responsibility. This is especially true when owning a working farm. If my ancestors hadn't taken care of the land they owned, I wouldn't have the home I do today. To understand our farm better, I called my grandpa. He explained how our farm came to be owned by our family. When Hank had his accident, my great-great-great-grandpa Swin Peterson bought the farm. He obtained the land because he saw that it was rich in the clay soil and would make great farm ground. And did it ever. Grandpa Swin farmed garden peas, and Hank's Ranch became known as the garden pea capital of the San Luis Valley due to its bountiful yield. Those peas were harvested, taken to Lahara, Colorado, packaged, and then shipped on the rail cars and sent all over the United States. After Swin passed away, his sons Wilford and Orville Peterson took ownership of the Hanks Ranch and continued to farm peas. Wilford had 8 children, including my great-grandma Mary June Peterson. Mary June had a brother named David who purchased the Hanks Ranch from his dad, Wilford, and Uncle Orville. Around the same time, Mary June married Herman Miller, who had quite a bit of experience farming and ranching. So David hired him to manage the Hanks Ranch. David and Herman transitioned from pea farming to small grains and alfalfa farming. They also introduced cattle to the operation. I remember Grandpa Herman telling stories of his early days working the land. It was hard work. He had to use horses to pull the plows. I can't imagine what that would have been like. Mary June and Herman had 4 boys, one of which is my Grandpa Vaughn. He was raised working on the Hanks Ranch. He loved it so much that when he grew up, he and my grandma purchased the ranch from Uncle David. Grandpa Herman continued to work on the ranch and was driving tractors until he was 90 years old. In fact, there was a windrower, which is like a big lawnmower, that my Grandpa Herman drove. It always worked perfectly for him, even though it was pretty old. After he passed away, no one could ever get that windrower to work again. My grandpa Vaughn and grandma Connie had 7 children, 6 boys and 1 girl. My dad is the youngest sibling and also grew up farming. My grandpa Vaughn tells a story about my dad when he was 10 years old. My dad was driving a tractor and my grandpa was in another tractor in the same field. My grandpa saw my dad leaving the field and couldn't figure out why he would quit working. After all, the work wasn't done. My grandpa finished up what he was doing and decided to go see where my dad had gone off to. When my grandpa found him, my dad was welding a piece of the tractor back on. My dad's tractor had something break, and he was trying to get it fixed so he could get back to work. That's exactly the kind of responsibility it takes to own property. Equipment must be maintained and the land must be nurtured. After more than 100 years of farming, this same ground is still producing today. Currently, our farm produces alfalfa, and we have been a no-till operation for over 15 years. No-till soil is very effective at capturing excess carbon and maintaining a rich, nutrient-dense environment. Involving and implementing sustainable practices has been a cornerstone of the Hanks Ranch operations. I have learned how to care for and maintain our property by working with my dad and grandpa. I am glad I live where I do and that we have the freedom to choose how we use our property. This legacy my great-great-great-grandpa started over 100 years ago could go on for hundreds more. But just like generations before, we will have to invest a large amount of time, effort, and hard work. When researching Jesse James, I came to the realization that he was not the good guy his legends lead us to believe. He was not some Robin Hood character stealing from the rich to give to the poor. He was a criminal who violated other people's rights. He seemed to steal and commit murder vengefully and with no apparent purpose. He was very good at evading the law and did so for about 15 years. I believe this is what led to his legend status. He was so bold and blatant in his crimes that people couldn't help but gawk at him. Authorities pursued him tirelessly until he was finally captured and was killed by a person whom he trusted. His criminal behaviors ultimately led authorities to value the rights of the communities over the rights of the individual. At times, his course of action is necessary for the greater good. Throughout this project, I learned that I have God-given, inalienable rights that no one can take away. However, it is my responsibility not to infringe upon anyone else's rights either. Like generations that have come before, I can peacefully coexist with others by respecting their rights and they mine. This understanding is essential to creating a harmonious society for future generations. And isn't that ultimately what we are doing here? Living and prospering now so future generations can live and prosper later? My great-grandma, Mary June Miller, said it perfectly when she wrote, "Time has a way of catching up with us. One man's spring is another man's autumn, and sooner or later, we all become a part of the ages. Today's happenings are tomorrow's history."